bringing the people behind our food to life.
On the question of food, my contention is that culture has more to teach us, that there is wisdom in cuisines.
I would argue there's an order of magnitude difference in the pleasure that one derives at the table as well. Can you speak to us a little bit about that? I recall in your book
Well, pleasure kind of gets lost. I mean, we've adopted this very strange ideology when it comes to food, which is that we're obsessed with nutrients. We're obsessed with health. And you know, we have become, or we're in danger of becoming, a nation of orthorexics. I mean, that's a word coined by a shrink who claimed he was seeing a lot of patients who had an unhealthy obsession with healthy eating. And that's who we are these days.
But the thinking about the healthy eating, not necessarily the doing.
The doing. Well, that's right. And because we're binge eaters, we eat very badly, and then suddenly we decide we're going to diet or change everything. But you know, people have eaten for a whole lot of other reasons besides either advancing or ruining their health. You know, they eat for pleasure, they eat for community, they eat for to express their identity. These are all equally legitimate ways to eat. The odd thing is, in America, we've focused on this one issue, that food, the key fact in food is the nutrients, and the key issue in eating is health. And I think that's very narrow, and not to mention it ruins a whole lot of meals when you look at things that way. I think health should be a byproduct of pleasurable eating, and indeed it can be.
And community building.
And community building. So there are all these other values that are getting pushed aside. The mystery is why we have fallen for this pseudo-scientific view of food. And it turns out to be a very old idea in America. In the 1860s and 70s, you find, you know, reformers talking about scientific eating and getting the immigrants off of their messy, you know, single pot dishes and eating more scientifically.
They're healthy, nutritious, delicious, culturally appropriate.
Exactly,
hot meals.
exactly. Those were wrong. And it was the effort then was to Americanize everybody under this supposedly objective banner of science. Science transcends culture. And that's what we wanted to do when it came to food in this country. So, and I think it was, you know, that's where we went off the rails. I think we made a really bad call. And of course now the prestige of science is such that nobody pays attention to culture. If anything has to do with biology, science must know best. But the surprise when I was doing this research was that how much more reliable wisdom there was in culture, in what cultures have taught people about how to eat for you know, millennia. And that the scientific view has not served us well. They may get it right at some point, but so far, food science, or the science of nutrition is really what I should say, is it's a very, to put it charitably, very young science, and they still don't fundamentally understand what's going on deep in the soul of a carrot. You know, what makes a carrot a healthy food?
A carrot. The essence of a carrot. The
essence of a carrot. Is it the beta-carotene? That's what they thought. But they took the beta-carotene out of the carrot and it didn't work as a supplement. So there was something else going on in the carrot, and they still don't know what it is. They may get it at some point, but food is every food is a complex system. And so far, science has failed to reduce it. And you know what? It's fine. You don't have to understand a carrot to eat a carrot, enjoy a carrot, and get the benefit of a carrot.
Right.
What other authority can we turn to for guidance in how to eat? It's not me, okay? I'm a writer. I'm not an expert. But I went looking for other sources of wisdom about food. And they're there. And they can be expressed in one word, and that is culture. Culture is really just a fancy word when it comes to food for your mom. For thousands of years, mothers told children what to eat, how to eat, what order in which to eat it, how much of it to eat. And they were passing on wisdom, the wisdom of the tribe. It's not just convention, the result of trial and error. Culture is a very powerful tool. We undervalue it because we value science, the prestige of science in all matters having to do with biology. But on the question of food, my contention is that culture has more to teach us, that there is wisdom in cuisines. There is wisdom in traditional food cultures, not just in what they're eating or the combinations of food, even though those are very rich in wisdom, but in the practices, in the cultural habits. So what I tried to do in the last third of this book, which is very much a nuts and bolts attempt to channel that cultural wisdom and make it relevant to our times, is find what I could. And I'll give you a couple examples, because I really want to get to your questions shortly. But you know, the haiku we were talking about, that Deborah was talking about, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. It really did come down to that. And in a way, I gave it away on the front of the book, and there's no reason to buy this book. And I was kind of worried when I realized I could boil down a whole book to 7 words. Maybe I should be publishing an index card. My publisher wasn't happy with that proposal. But in fact, as you know, it's a little more complicated than that, because what is food? We no longer know what food is. The food store is full of edible food-like substances masquerading as food. So how do you distinguish one from the other? And that's the first part of the prescriptive part of this book. How do you tell foods from edible food-like substances? And I have these, you know, cultural rules. They're not phrased in terms of science. One is, don't eat anything your great-grandmother wouldn't recognize as food. Perform that mental exercise. Take her with you, imaginatively, as you roll down the aisles of the supermarket. And you pick up that box of Go-Gurt portable yogurt tubes. She takes one of the tubes out of the box. Is this toothpaste? How do you introduce this to your body? Where does it go? And then she reads the label. And she thought, isn't yogurt milk with a bacterial culture? That's all yogurt is. Well, what are those 15 other things? What are they doing there? That is not food. So perform that exercise. That's one rule. Another is, you know, some simple ones you've heard from other people. I collected these. I didn't invent them all. Don't eat anything that won't eventually rot. There's a lot of food in the supermarket that will, you know, never rot. I bought a Twinkie when I was on tour with Omnivore's Dilemma because I was using it as a prop, and it sits on my desk 2 years later, and it's as soft as the day I bought it. What does that mean? Well, I'll tell you exactly what it means. When we process food to make it shelf stable, when we refine flour to make white flour, and we're so happy because it doesn't, you know, it doesn't have pest problems. Why doesn't it have pest problems? Because the bacteria and the insects and the mice aren't interested in it. Why? Because it has so little nutritional value. They're not stupid. They still have instincts that guide them to the nutrients they need. They're in touch with their senses. So don't eat anything that won't rot. Shop, if you are in the supermarket, shop the periphery. That is where the food that has been least fiddled with in the last 75 years still resides. Produce, fresh fruits and vegetables, dairy products, fish, meat. These are the things that, yes, they've been industrialized to a certain extent, and they're not quite what they were, but they still are whole foods. And it's really in the middle of the supermarket, those canyons of processed foods, that you find the stuff that would baffle your great-grandmother. She could handle the periphery. She could not handle the cereal aisle. She could not handle the soda aisle. She could not handle the Honey Nut Cheerio breakfast bars with synthetic milk stripe in the middle. So there's a series of rules like that. And I solicit from you, please, more. And I've gathered some really good ones over the last couple months. It's not food if it comes to you through a car window. I kind of like that one. Someone told me their grandmother used to say, here's cultural wisdom, the whiter the bread, the sooner you'll be dead. Wouldn't you like to have had that grandmother? That is true. That is wise. That was not understood by the scientists putting us on carbs and off of fat. Another one that I came up with was eat all the junk food you want as long as you cook it yourself. One of our problems with food now, since we've started outsourcing food preparation to corporations, is that we're eating special occasion food every day. Things like fried chicken, French fries. French fries are a great example. French fries are great. I love French fries. But if I only ate them when I cooked them, think what's involved. Washing the potatoes, peeling the potatoes, slicing the potatoes, frying the potatoes, figuring out what to do with the oil when you're done frying the potatoes, cleaning up the kitchen. You would not do it every day. You might do it once a month, every 6 weeks, and that's about probably how often you should have French fries. Same for fried chicken. Same for Twinkies. Have Twinkies, as long as you cook them yourself and figure out how to squirt that cream in there. So anyway, so I'm still collecting these, and I'll put them on my website at some point. So if you have any good ones, please email it to me. You go to the website and you can find an email address. Now, in doing this too, though, it's not the content of the food that's everything. There is also the way we eat it. You go around to different food cultures, and you know their habits around food. And this is what gets us to the not too much part of the haiku. It's not enough to just tell people, eat less. That really doesn't mean things to people. People don't, you can't use that. Everyone knows we should eat less. But you can find other cultures that have learned how to eat less, how to navigate abundance. So the Japanese, for example, have a cultural rule that you eat until you're 80% full. That's a weird concept. I mean, who knows when you're 80% full? But you do know before you're full. And if you stopped anywhere on that continuum, you would be much better off. And in fact, several Muslims have come up to me since reading this book saying, well, the Prophet Muhammad had a rule about this, another cultural rule. When you're eating, 1/3 food, 1/3 drink, and 1/3 air, so you can breathe easy. In other words, 1/3 you don't eat. That's how a human should eat. So what I try to do is collect the wisdom of culture. I want to just read you one last passage from the end where I talk about some of these rules about food practice rather than content, the form.